We're tearing it down here, Monster Energy AMA Supercross. I believe this is round 8. This is the Weege show. It's brought to you by Race Tech and their Gold Valves. We're inside the Palatial, the beautiful. It's about 10 years old now, AT&T Stadium, but still probably the nicest stadium we go to. I know it's round 8, but honestly, it feels like we had about 8 rounds wrapped up into one. This might have been the most action-packed 3 straight hours of Supercross, maybe ever, that I can remember. We haven't had a lot of these Triple Crown events. Obviously, everything's more intense when at the beginning of the night, the races count for something. They're not just heat races for gate picks. And both classes had action and battles and excitement, good stuff and bad stuff. And it really defines what racing is all about. I think there are 2 incidents that really summed up both classes and how the races were won and lost. First, in the 450 division, Jason Anderson could have easily gone 1-1-1. But instead, an ill-advised pass attempt to try to take the lead from Malcolm Stewart in the first race. He took them both down. Malcolm would have made the Cowboys proud with a nice tackle on Anderson while trying to get back to his bike. Eventually, Anderson finished that race in 6th, Malcolm 5th. Anderson came back to win at the end of the night, but it wasn't enough to edge Eli Tomac out of the overall. You could probably argue that Anderson was a little bit better than Tomac on this night, but the racing was fantastic between those 2 veteran riders that know each other well, putting on veteran moves, cat and mouse, but not of the dirty variety. Really, really fun to watch. Anderson continues to absolutely haul the mail this year, but he also continues to not score as many points and maximize his result every weekend, because a couple things keep not going his way. He gets knocked down by other guys. He knocks down some guys on his own. He had the radiator problem in San Diego. He's riding phenomenally well. It does sum up, though, like I said, what racing is all about. And it's that thin line. Really, it's not just racing, actually. I should just say sports. That thin line between risk and reward. He saw an opening on Malcolm. He said as soon as he landed, he was on the gas and he knew he was going in there too fast. He actually tried to stop. It was too late. He went down. But as I always say, they don't have calculators on the handlebars. It's no different here if Dak Prescott in this stadium is throwing a deep ball downfield. The goal is to hit the receiver, but there's defense and there's a route, and sometimes that ball misses by 2 inches from where you wanted it to go, and that is the difference between a hero and a zero. Or in the case of the Cowboys in the playoffs, the clock turns 0. They were 1 second away from getting off maybe a play and going on to play the next weekend. That's how sports works. It's a very thin line between risk and reward, tragedy and triumph. That cost Anderson big time, and Tomac edges ahead to win another race, double his points lead essentially from 3 to 6. It's also the story in the 250 class where Jet Lawrence, okay, he won last week, but I think we were seeing a measured effort by Jet. He had the early lead last week at Minneapolis. He didn't have to go all out immediately, and he just rode as hard as he needed to. He whole shots the first race here, and he crashes in turn 2, and he has to come from last. And then we really saw the speed edge that Jet actually has this year. It was unbelievable how fast he was going. The closing speed, got to 4th, nearly podium from last, kind of matching what we saw from Christian Craig at Glendale when he went down. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Then Jet wins the second one going away. Everything looks like it's going his direction, and then he crashes again after getting a good start in race 3. And that's really the crux of the situation. A terrible move. He sent it in the whoops, saved it. He said he was very emotional after this race. He's very regretful of what he did. He sent it again, almost died in the whoops a second time, still passed Austin Forkner around the outside, but it was too far outside, clipped a tough block, and ended up being bounced off to the right over the jump. Forkner was right behind him. Forkner got taken down. I don't know yet what the medical report is on Forkner, but let's be honest, it's not good. We know the telltale signs when a rider's coming off the track holding his shoulder. I don't know if it's a collarbone or a shoulder separation or anything like that. Anytime they're holding that arm, wrist, shoulder area, we've seen it enough to know it's usually pretty bad. And Forkner made no attempts to get back on his motorcycle. Like I said, Jet was extremely bummed, extremely emotional after the race on the podium, and then especially so in the press conference. He said he was sick about it. He even went into the Alpine Stars medic trailer to apologize to Forkner. It's that thin line between risk and reward. He had fallen down. He was making a charge. He went too hard. And really that's what racing and sports come down to. He was super bummed. Anderson, I think, bummed to let it slip away a little bit with a mistake of his own in that first one as well. But it's also the drama of sports. You know, you can replay those moments over and over in slow motion and analyze who made the right move, who made the wrong move. Ultimately for Jet, look, he had the speed to come out of here with the win easily. He even had the start super dialed. You give Jet Lawrence 3 times that he goes into a first turn in the lead and he doesn't end up winning the race, he's done something wrong, and he did, and he wore that. And to give you the full example, so we're tearing all the bikes down here at Honda, of how crazy this 250 class has become. Cameron McAdoo has now become the rock. What do you got there? Oh, the tray show. I'm doing my, the tray show. You want to be on my show? Did you do yours first? Did you start? It was your idea? You got this for me, right? I did. I copied you. I copied you. The tray show. Yeah, your GoPro's the tray show. That actually, you surprised yourself. What's the midnight snack?
At this point, anything. Sourdough bread.
It's changed so much.
It's plain.
It's changed so much. From that wouldn't happen in the old days. 2008, sourdough bread wasn't happening.
No pops.
Yeah, no cobs.
No pops.
Do some more curls, Trey. I gotta eat cleans. Wow, retired life is nice. Cameron McAdoo is now the rock of 250 Supercross East. He's Mr. Consistency. He was really good. You ready for your interview, Kaipo? Is today the day?
What do you want to say?
Well, I gotta say.
How about we say hello? What's up, everybody out there?
Can you give me a little like mahalo brah or something like cool like that? Or what's your term? Nothing? Nothing? No, no island life? Nothing, man?
Oh, yeah, dude. Positive vibes all day.
Positive vibes. Hey, I'm telling you what.
I'll see you.
Oh, you know, he doesn't want the interview. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. He should take it. Hey, you should take it. Anderson's riding awesome. Take all the credit you want. Yeah, there you go. Phenomenal riding for Anderson. And yeah, so for McAdoo, he's tied, I believe, with Jet for the points lead, and he's got a win, and he stayed out of trouble the whole time. What really impressed me is in the second race, he straight up outdueled Forkner. He got around him, he pulled away, and won that one, and then he won the second one. He was way out in front of the carnage. Now, you know McAdoo's a super hard worker. He even said, I still need to get faster, I still need to get better. But look, the bomb can go off at any moment with any of these 250 riders, but for Forkner, it happened. And for McAdoo, so far, he's been consistent. You never know when that might change, but he is the most credible threat, because another rider was lost in the 250 division. Our guy Phil Nicoletti has been riding spectacularly. Like, I really feel like Phil, one of the biggest surprises of the season. Maybe not as much as Anderson, who's taking this championship and he's right there at Tomac's throat for it. But Phil Nicoletti, in his return to Supercross for the first time since 2018, has been really good. But the drain finally pulled out. He washed the front end while maybe headed toward a top 5 in the final main event, and then over a tunnel jump, he tangled with RJ Hampshire. I don't think it was anybody's fault, but Hampshire hit the ground hard. Club team, see you boys. Thanks for dinner. I got to have broccoli and chicken over there. You don't get healthy meals at the racetrack very often. Better than sourdough plain bread. Phil tangled with, thanks for dinner.
You're welcome, anytime.
All right, and RJ got the worst of it. He was down on the track, not moving for a bit. He eventually did sit up. I'm not sure what the situation with the Hampshire is, but unfortunately, if you're Hampshire and Forkner, you have one goal every season. Don't crash out finally. And it appears they might have done that again. And again, not even their fault. Just racing incidents. It's cruel sometimes. We had the full menu of a Supercross here, and I don't just mean chicken and broccoli and sourdough. I mean good stuff like the battles between Tomac and Anderson, as I said, were great. They were really well calculated. It was cat and mouse. It was getting putting a move on and then a counter to that, and then the next lap switching to counter and then countering back. But then we also saw poor racecraft from some of the younger riders. So that's the full menu of souping. As far as what it means going forward, let's talk about a few other factors. Really, really good for Chase Sexton, who we thought might have been done after last week's crash, to bounce back. He was a hair off, I think, later in the races. He had the typical speed. He was right there in the group. He didn't quite have it in the latter laps of each race. I'm sure that he was beat up. I'm sure this week's training was not quite normal, but he definitely still showed speed, and he probably would have been on the podium. Cooper Webb, Sexton, Anderson, and Tomac were almost a four-way tie going into the final race of the night, and that was really the key. We know Webb was better last week, but it was kind of with an asterisk. Like, he was closer to the front last week, but at the same time, he wouldn't have finished on the podium if Sexton hadn't wadded it and if Malcolm hadn't crashed. So it was still a test to see Webb is better, but how much better? And tonight he won the first race, again because of the Anderson-Mookie situation, but he did outduel Justin Barsha, who's on that gas team back there right at the end, so that was impressive for Webb. And the second race, he had a chance. He was fourth. Could he go with Sexton, Anderson, and Tomac? They pulled away from him at the beginning. Once they started battling, Webb closed in. You know, Webb's always good late. And then the third race, so he basically matched him for the most part. Third race, it didn't happen because he fell down early, but he still rallied back to end up on the podium after Sexton went down late in it. So Webb is at least creeping closer. He's getting in the conversation. Not quite fast enough to the point where he's ripping the hearts out of the competitors and stealing race wins late, but you can see that type of situation brewing and building. So it'll be really fun to see Webb trying to dig this out and try to stave off championship elimination while Tomac and Anderson are ripping, and while Sexton luckily appears to have escaped what could have been much worse circumstances from last week. But right now the story is still Anderson versus Tomac. Great job by Tomac to win it, but more importantly, it's great to see these guys battling at the very, very highest of levels. And when you're pushing like that, sometimes things happen. Like I said, it's like Dak Prescott throwing the ball 70 yards downfield. You have intentions, you have the best intentions of how it's going to turn out. It doesn't always go exactly the way you want it, and Anderson's got to look back at it and say, if I hadn't rushed that pass, things would be different. Jet Lawrence absolutely pretty much said those words. He was really bummed on it. That's it. Thanks to Race Tech for backing our show. Coming up next is Daytona. That's a good one for Tomac, boys. Be careful. We'll see you there. Bonus coverage. Again, brought to you by Race Tech and their fabulous gold valves. Buy a set, your suspension will have better traction, plusher with more bottoming resistance, and it's all made in the USA. Go to racetech.com. Just talking to the great Mitch Payton over there at that Pro Circuit Monster Energy Kawasaki truck, and I'll tell you, it doesn't sum up what I was trying to sum up before the bonus coverage. When Jet Lawrence was trying to pass Austin Forkner in the whoops, he was completely out of control, and he was on the outside. Forkner appears to have gone out of his way to not make contact, because I think Forkner's like, dude, I've been hurt enough. I'm trying to be as safe as I possibly can. It's only round 2. And Mitch said, Austin probably should have dumped all your trash. Mitch Payton says, Austin probably should have just finished him off in that corner. Maybe he gets passed back, but just, he was on the inside. He could have finished it off right there, and then that wouldn't have happened. So here's the cruel irony. Again, when you're trying to make these smart decisions in the moment, Forkner tried to do the right thing and not hit Lawrence when he could have easily defended his position right there. And his penalty for doing the smart thing, the safe thing, is crashing out 10 feet later on the track, because Lawrence was still there on the outside trying to make it happen. Like I said, these are split-second decisions. There are some decisions, I think we all know them, that are just never going to work out ever. A lot of them are split-second decisions. They're calculated risks. Sometimes you gamble and win. Sometimes you gamble and you don't. Anderson had 4 or 5 absolutely brilliant moves on Tomac tonight, and he had one dumb one with Malcolm Stewart, which proved costly. That's how racing goes. All right, hope you enjoyed the bonus coverage and some great insight from Mitch Payton.